To start off, I'm adding 5½ cups of veggie broth to this pan. You may not need to use all of this. It's going to take anywhere between 4 cups and 5½ cups. But we want to have the broth or the stock nice and warm because this keeps the rice from cooling down each time you add the stock into it. This way we don't slow down the cooking time. For the rice, I'm going to start by melting 3 tablespoons of butter. Once my butter stops spattering, I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of chopped shallots, along with 1 chopped garlic clove, and a pinch of kosher salt. Going to give this a nice little stir, and I'm going to cook this for a minute or 2 until my shallots become translucent. I'm also going to add in some freshly ground black pepper, and now that my shallots are looking translucent, I'm going to add in my arborio rice. That was 1½ cups, and I want to stir this up really well and get my rice coated in that butter. Give it a little sprinkle of kosher salt, and we're going to continue stirring this until our rice starts to toast up a little bit. This is going to take 1 or 2 minutes. Once my rice is looking all beautiful like this, I'm going to add in 1/4 cup of white wine and give it a stir. Be very careful of the steam. And we're going to stir this around until that wine evaporates. And we are ready to start adding in our stock. So 1 ladle goes in, and we stir. Make sure as you're doing this that you're getting any rice that's hanging out on the sides of the pan, otherwise you'll end up with some crunchy ones at the end. Let all of that first ladle of stock completely soak in. And now we add another. Remember that your broth or stock should be nice and warm because you don't want to slow down the cooking time of your risotto. If you're adding in cold stock, every time you add it in, it's going to cool everything off and then it has to heat back up to absorb. When your rice looks like this, see how the bottom is getting dry? It's time for another ladle of stock. And we stir it in again. By the way, I have reduced the heat on my stove to like a medium-low. Once this is mostly absorbed, we're going to add another ladle. And we are going to continue this process until we have about 4 cups of stock added in. You don't have to constantly stir your risotto. Overstirring your risotto will result in a gluey, gloppy mess, and nobody wants that. A good rule of thumb for stirring your risotto is to stir after each addition of liquid, and then again every 30 to 45 seconds until that liquid is absorbed, making sure that none of the rice is sticking to the bottom. And I am using a low sodium veggie broth here because I want to be able to control the salt, and if you use one that's high in salt, you very well may end up with super salty risotto, and that is not what we are going for here. Once you get about 4 cups of your liquid mixed in, your rice should be looking pretty creamy like this. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop and give it a little taste, and what I'm checking for is seasoning and texture. I want it to be creamy and still a little bit al dente. So this is pretty much perfect at this point, so what I want to do is go ahead and give it 2 more ladles of my liquid. And this is a pretty small ladle, by the way. It's like 2 ounces. I'm also going to add in 3/4 of a teaspoon of nutmeg, about a tablespoon of fresh sage, and 1 cup of pumpkin. I'm going to stir this up and check it again for seasonings and make any necessary adjustments. Once you've finished adjusting your seasonings, go ahead and turn off the heat and add 1/2 cup of freshly shredded Parmesan cheese and give it a stir. To make my crispy sage, I melted 3 tablespoons of butter. We're going to wait for the butter to stop foaming and spattering. And then go ahead and start dropping in your sage leaves. Let them cook for about 1 minute until they're crispy, and then remove them from the pan onto a paper towel. As an added bonus, at this point you're going to have some beautiful sage brown butter. Strain your brown butter and put it over to the side. We are going to be using that delicious brown butter as one of our garnishes on our risotto. To serve, I'm going to put a little bit of brown butter, some dried cranberries, and some pumpkin seeds, some little pepitas. I'm also going to add a couple of pieces of that crispy sage, and be really careful with this because it is delicate. You can also add a little bit of Parmesan if you would like. For a really amazing meal, try pairing this with my roasted pork loin. It is absolutely fantastic together. I'm going to leave you a link to that recipe just over to the right on your screen, so go ahead and click that now. Thank you so much for watching, and happy cooking, everyone.